So our next review is polynomials and solving equations. So again, you have full details in your notes. You don't have your notes, you can go back on the website. Basically, I'm giving you a crash course on everything you will need for your exam for EQAO in this. So it says important things to remember. Like terms have the exact same variable. What does variable mean again? What does a variable mean? Nick? The unknown. How does a variable represented? Nick? It's usually represented by a letter. So like terms have the same variable. There's two steps we have to remember. Group, look in front to see if it's positive or negative, and then we count. So we did this in, we had this with highlighters, and if I were to highlight, what are my like terms here? Jonathan? What am I forgetting? I'm forgetting to look in front. Minus 5x squared. So that's my first set of like terms. What else? What else are like terms? Lucas? What do I highlight? Positive 2x and? Good. What else am I going to highlight? What else will I highlight here? Nick? Positive 5 and negative 6. If you don't have highlighters, go get them. They're in the bins, which you guys should get. Okay, so can you tell me, so we've highlighted our group, our like terms here. Now I have to group them together. How will I group these together? Can someone tell me what I'll write on my next line here? I'm going to start, Nick. Caught you when you're yawning. What will I write next down here? Yep. That's perfect. So if I were to look, here are my, whoops, that's not my yellow terms. Here's my yellow, here's my green, here's my blue. So I've grouped the terms together. Now I need to count them. So after I simplify them, so here are my x squared. Lucas, what will I write on my next line for that? Good. 4x squared. Remember, I don't do anything with that exponent. When I'm adding and subtracting, exponents stay the same. Bailey, what will I write after 4x squared? I can't just write 10x. Good. It's positive 10x. Very good. So I've taken care of that. And Noriel, what will I write after that? Beautiful. Negative 1. So positive 5 minus 6 gives me negative 1. You should have no double signs there. Okay? Any questions with that? All right, that was collecting like terms. The distributive property. Important things to remember. Brackets mean multiplication. We have to multiply the outside term with everything inside the bracket. That was like our dancing. When we multiply, if the variables are the same, add the exponents. So, Tristan, do you remember what I will do for this first example? Good. And what would I write down? What would be my first part here? Good. Negative 8x squared. Jonathan, what will I write for my next one? I'm not done here. I just multiplied one term. I now have to do the negative 2 times negative 3. I like that you looked in front. What do you get when you do negative 2 times negative 3, Jonathan? Good. I get positive 6. That is my final answer. Why is that my final answer here, Nick? Yeah, they're not like terms, so I have to stop there. They're different. Can't add them. All right, Ben. Now I have a variable and a coefficient outside that bracket. So I'm still going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply this with this. Ben, do you remember when there's no number in front, what does that mean? Good. So can you tell me what will I write on my next answer here? 4x, it's not squared. There's a 1 there, a 2 there. What would I write? 3, because I add the exponents. Okay? Andrew, what do I do for the next one? Very good. 4x times negative 3x. And what do I get here? Not positive 12. Negative 12. And then what do I write? Not cubed. There's a 1 here. When there's no exponent, it means the exponent. 1. So what do I write there? Pardon? I don't write 1. I add the exponent. So the exponent out here is 1. The exponent out here is 1. So it would be squared. And then my final one, Nick Shields. Which gives me? Very good, negative 8x. So that's like saying x to the 0 plus 1 gives me 1. Anyone have any questions about this? So the big part here is, which maybe it would be a good idea to highlight, when multiplying, if the variables are the same, add the exponents. That's one that students will sometimes forget. So you don't want to forget that one. So that was the distributive property. Solving equations, important things to remember. To solve an equation means to get all variables on one side of the equal sign and all constants on the other side. Brackets must be done first. When moving terms across the equal sign, remember they're opposites. So the first thing that I need to do here is what, Lucas? What do I have to get rid of first? Good, and how do I do that? 6 times 2. Good. And what would I write down on my next line here? Okay. Good, which gives me? Very good. Now, do I do 6 times positive 5, Lucas? Why not? Good. I'm glad you remember that. So again, remember that when I don't have something inside the bracket, I don't multiply. I'm only multiplying with what's inside the bracket. So, Bailey, can you continue for me? Lucas did 12x minus 18, so he distributed. What am I going to write next? Excellent. And Noriel, what am I going to do now? I don't have any brackets. Good. So what am I going to be moving? Okay, I got to move one of them. So which one am I going to move? Okay, so I'm going to move this 2x over here. What else am I going to be moving? Anything else? Good. So Tristan, can you tell me, after I move everything over, what will I write? Good, because you remembered the opposites. Excellent. Keep going. Minus 5, I like. Plus 18. Okay, so there's a lot of good things happening here. I love that when on the right-hand side here, Tristan wrote what was given first. We were given the +7, that comes first. Then he wrote what he brought over. Same thing here. He was given 12x, then he brings over that -2, so it comes second. So excellent work. So I've got null variables to one side, all constants to the other. How am I going to simplify that, Jonathan? Mm-hmm. No, I don't get 10x squared. Can someone tell me why don't I get 10x squared? Why don't I, Lucas? Yeah, I don't add the exponents when there's no multiplication. So there's just adding and subtracting. So I just have 10x, then I write equals what, Jonathan? Good. What's my next step going to be, Nick? How do I get x by itself, Nick? Yes. What am I going to divide by? And what I do to one side, I have to do to the? Okay. Ben, what happens to these 10s here? Good. So what am I left with? So I just write? No. What's left over when I cancel those out? X equals, and then what am I left with? Pardon? Good. X equals 2. Any questions with that? That's probably, that's a little bit tricky. Okay, the very last problem that we're going to do, substitution. Important things to remember. Replace the variable with a number that is going to be in your given information, either from a picture or a written explanation. Remember to put brackets when you substitute into your equation. If the variable is already isolated, all you have to do is just plug and chug. Put it into your calculator, tell me what the answer is. If the variable is not isolated, you must solve the equation. Well, we're going to do the harder of them, and there's a similar question like this on your in your booklet. It says here the cone shown below is 20 centimeters high and has a total volume of 1,000 centimeters cubed. Which of the following is closest to the length of the radius? Okay, we're going to do this by solving equations. So first of all, I need a formula. What formula will I use if I'm talking about a cone? What formula? Nick? Volume equals pi r squared h over 3. Okay, I'm going to be substituting some information in. Andrew, can you tell me what am I going to substitute in? Pardon? I have some information that was given up at the top too. So what will I start with? Okay, before I start with the height, do I know what v is? What is it? So I'm going to start with 1,000 equals, what would I write instead of that? 3.14. Do I know what the radius is? No, so I leave r squared. Do I know what h is? What is it? 20 centimeters over 3. Okay, here is going back a bit. We have an example like this in your notes, but let's see what we can remember. Nick, what's the first thing I want to get rid of here? Not the squared. We don't like these things. What don't I like here? Nah, I can live with the brackets. There's something else I really don't like. I want to get rid of this denominator. So this is saying all this divided by 3. What's the opposite of dividing by 3, Nick? Yeah, so what I do is I multiply both sides by 3. Are you with me so far? Lucas, what happens to these 3's here? They do cancel out. So what will I write, Lucas, on my next line here? Good. So again, I love that he simplified this. He did this 3 times 1,000, which gives me 3,000. Crossed out those 3's. Beautiful. Bailey, what am I going to do next? I can do some more simplification on this right-hand side. I can do something with these 2 numbers. Do you know what I could do with them? Yeah. What do I get when I multiply them? Because this is saying 3.14 times r squared times 20, I'm going to make my life simple and get rid of those 2 numbers and make them 1. So what do I get? 62 decimal. That's it? 8 r squared, and I still have 3,000 here. Are we okay with this? Anyone have any questions? Okay, Noriel, what's my next step going to be? Before I do the square root, that's going to be my last thing that I do. I want to get r by itself, so what do I have to move over next? And how do I do that? What operation am I going to do to bring that over? When I have 62.8, what operation is it with the r squared? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? What is that saying to do here? No, if it was subtracting, there'd be a sign there. When there's no sign, when a number is beside a letter, what operation does that mean? So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I have to divide by 62.8 on this side. Divide by 62.8 on this side. So again, remember when you have a number attached with a letter, that means multiplication. So, Tristan, what happens to these 62.8s? They cancel out. So what am I left with on my right-hand side? What am I left with on this side? What am I left with on this side? Okay, and when I simplify this, what am I left with?
47.
Okay, and then Jonathan, what's my last step going to be here? Yes, I do square root it. R equals the square root of 47.7. So I'm left with R equals, oh, and look at that. Okay, I just showed you the long way as to how to do this. This was an open response question. This is what is expected that it has to be done. When you're doing your questions today, I'll show you that sometimes you can use 2 methods to get the correct answer. Okay, so this was solving equations. I'm now going to give you your practice worksheet. Again, there are 10 questions that I would like you to do.